Today on Evolve from Performance to Purpose, I'm thrilled to welcome Hana Brellah. Hana is an international leader, keynote speaker, and communication expert with more than 20 years of experience leading teams across Europe, the Middle East, and Africa within the pharmaceutical industry. She is the CEO and founder of Find Your Voice, where she helps leaders and professionals strengthen their communication, leadership presence, and public speaking skills. Through her work, Hannah empowers people to speak with confidence, lead with authenticity, and create impact through the power of their voice. Alongside with her global leadership career, she is also a speaking coach, creator of the MI framework, and co-host of the Sound Good podcast, bringing together leadership, strategy, communication, and personal growth in a truly inspiring way. I am so excited to have you here, Hannah. Have I missed something? How could you continue this introduction about yourself?
That was an amazing introduction. And first of all, thank you so much, Angelica, for inviting me to your podcast. I've been really interested and I was looking forward to this conversation. And I think you summed a lot of pieces and steps of my life. What I could add to this is that through my lived experience, whether in everyday life, living across 3 different continents, starting from Africa, then the Middle East and Europe, but also in terms of leadership, is that in life, we can wear many hats. We can wear many hats at the same time when we are multifaceted in life. We can also transition, and it's always an opportunity to reinvent ourselves. When we start a one-line career, it doesn't mean that we stay there forever. And it can change because we evolve as people, but also we evolve from a purpose perspective, from a need perspective, and the person we were maybe 10 years ago are not the person we are today. And that's why I'm really glad to bring to this conversation maybe some performance and successes and achievement and some learning as well along the way in my past life. But who am I becoming today? From the leader and the pharma geek, since I'm a pharmacist, to today completely focusing on leadership and communication for myself as a keynote speaker, but also for all the leaders out there, or even all the emerging leaders out there, that they need to strengthen their voice so they can increase their leadership impact.
It's just wonderful to hear, and I already look forward, already before this conversation, I looked forward to having you here. But just having those couple of minutes before we started recorded, and just to talk to you and get ideas or help straight away on how I can improve, it shows what a wonderful person you are. How did you start in the pharmaceutical, and when did you become a leader, or what is leadership for you?
Yes, that's also a great question. So for me, being a pharmacist was one of my realistic dreams, let's put it like this. When I was a little child, being the younger sister, my 2 sisters are much older than me, so I had to spend some time on my own, even if I was not completely alone. And my mom was telling me, no worries, I'm not going to bring you a 4th child or a brother or sister, but I'm your best friend, which also explained a bit the close tie with my mom. But also on the other side, this spending time on my own created a full bubble for me. And in this bubble, I had multiple facets and dreams and hobbies. One of the big areas which has, on the surface, nothing to do with leadership is singing, songwriting, and playing music. And this was my biggest passion that brought me to the stage way before starting to study pharmacy, way before going to public speaking and starting my career in the pharma industry. But it unlocked something in me. It unlocked the fact that expressing ourselves, whatever the tool is crucial. And from that point, and from all those interests where singing was on the top, I was, as a child, every spring trying to take some flowers and try to produce some perfumes. And from there, the idea came to me, I want to be a chemist when I grow up. And this was my crazy dream. But then reality was hitting, surrounded also by a family of doctors, my mom, my sister. So this dream was shaped a bit in a more realistic way. And I said, okay, maybe being a pharmacist could lead to a greater business opportunities and career. And that's why I realized my realistic dream, the way I like to call it, and then I started studying pharmacy. So after graduating from pharmacy, they had two choices. The wise one, just stay in the lab and the hospital and have a full career of research and development, or the rebellious one, join in the pharmaceutical industry. I took the rebellious one. And in the pharmaceutical industry, I had also another choice. Should I keep it wise and take the road of any PharmD in the pharmaceutical industry, which is clinical research, research and development, regulatory, or go completely to the other edge, which is taking the business road? And I chose the latest. So I am a pharmacist, my heart is in science, but my head is in business. And in my whole career, working through sales, marketing, I was always trying to link, especially in terms of communication, how can you better sell or how can you better communicate a science-driven word? And this is how my career started. And I think there is the luck is there. There is the ambition also on the other side. So by starting with sales, I moved very quickly to marketing. So this experience helped me to see on one side the communication skills, because when you are in sales, you are facing customers, you need to convince them, and you need to simplify your communication skills, especially when you come from the pharma word and jargon when it's super complex. And then moving to the marketing, it was also about communication, but more from a strategic perspective. And later on, actually, my first leadership role was head of both sales and marketing. And what I realized there is that leadership is two different aspects. There is the business side, because when you lead a business. You are accountable at the end on performance, on results, and everyone is expecting something from you, including yourself. You're expecting to shine and to succeed. But the other layer that I discovered and that I really enjoy, even more than business, is leading people. Nobody teaches you how to lead people before you start leading them. And even if you do a lot of classes and studies and graduation that I did later on in my career, but the first time you lead a team, nobody comes with a recipe and tells you need to do 1, 2, 3. So you have to discover things. And I came to leadership more than 15 years ago. And in my first role, all my team were much older than me. So this classical leader that is respected because they are older and they have more years of experience, I had to give up that dream. And I had to find my own way, my authentic way of leading. When the team is more experienced than you, when the team has spent so many years in the company and you are just the newcomer. This is where I realized that autocratic leadership doesn't work all the time, and leadership is not a one-size-fits-all. Listening to people, developing people, having your team as sparring partners, seeing who is junior, who is senior, and situational leadership became really important to me. This was my one stop or my first stop in leadership. And this style followed me. But as I moved across countries and across continents, from Algeria, my home country, then to Africa, Middle East, and Europe, I also realized that leadership style evolves according to the environment you are in and to what is expected from you. If you are managing a team of 5 people versus a country versus ending up managing teams across Europe, Middle East, and Africa, then of course you become more strategic leader, you become more into critical thinking, and you know more where to be more emotional and where really to keep your emotions on the backstage and really make tough calls. And for me, that's leadership. Leadership is people-oriented, is looking at the business, is not necessarily looking to be liked, because once we are a leader, we give up on the idea to be liked. And we might take some decisions that nobody would like.
And I think that is very important to remember, because if you're a leader and your main goal is that everyone is supposed to like you, then you have already lost the respect that you need to be the one who take the hard decisions. Because wanting to be liked, I think it is more important to be respected, and not in a harsh way. You don't want your organizations to be afraid of you, but they are supposed to respect you because they trust you, because they know where they have you. And the importance of knowing that you can change as a leader. You can learn, and you are supposed to be open to the people that you have around you, because you don't need to be the best in everything. You are supposed to be surrounded with the people that are best in the line of work that they are doing. And your role is to bring that out from people so that your team gets the results that you want. And because you are the type of leader that actually bring that out from the people around you.
Totally true. And I have to say that this is also a journey. You just mentioned that we don't have to be the best. And for me, I have to confess that I struggled for many years, and maybe still struggling, about this concept of being the best. Because I grew up in a family of intellectual where excellence was a norm, where being the first and the best at school was what was expected. And of course, somehow this mindset brought me to where I am today. But retrospectively, I also realized that aiming always to be the best and looking at the best as a norm, not even as an achievement, there is a price to pay.
Yes, and I can say that I recognize myself in your history when you said you were a young leader and you have older and more experienced people that you were working with. And I did the same. I wasn't in the same background. I was in retail, but I came in and became leader in the store that I was working in. So they already knew me as the salesperson and the colleague. And when you go up and become the leader in an organization where 3 people already had your role before, and now you're supposed to prove why you are the one who is supposed to have this title now. And it took me over a year, I think, to stop run on everything to become the best at everything, because I was good at what I did. But I needed to become a better leader. And to become a better leader, you need to have that first role where you learn, and to have good people around you that mentor you to become the person that you want to be. And I think that's something that I have, when I look back now, I wished that someone had sat down with me and said, who do you want to be as a leader? Not just try to put me in a model that we said that we want everyone to be like this, or you need to do like that. Who do you want to be, and how would you like to be remembered? And that's something that I bring up in my coaching now, that who do you want to be? How do you want your people to describe you? And if I go and ask your team, how would they describe you today? How close is it to the description that you would like to have? And I think when I learned, I had a leader that came to me when I got a new leader for myself, who asked me, what are your goals for the future? Do you want to be where you are forever, or do you want to grow? And I said, of course, I want to climb the ladder, because that's what you're supposed to do. Angelica, 22 years old, said, of course you want to climb the ladder, because I always wanted to learn more. And he said, then you need to create an organization that will have the results if you're here and if you don't. Because if you want to be able to do more projects on the side, your team must be able to continue to have good results with less less of Angelica on site, because you're supposed to be able to take care of your team without being in the same room as them. And that's where I found my strength in making other people grow, because nowadays I love to see someone else climb. I have never been afraid to when you have a recruitment or something, when they say when you ask them, what's your goal? I want to have your job. And I feel straight away, this is a person I want to work with, because they have the ambition, they have it in them that they want to get feedback, to be able to be better, and to see people grow around you. I think that is the privilege of being a leader.
I totally agree. And even I feel like we are almost touching the coaching side, because when you, as a coach, also when you see people, even in your own area, becoming better than you, you almost feel the same sense of pride. What I also realized, because I wanted to get back to the point where you mentioned that on the first year, the first year as a leader, you need to learn how to be a leader. And what I realized is that sometimes, probably we had the same experience, I wanted to climb the ladder, as you described, fast. And 10 years ago, I was seeing myself already a global CEO. And I can tell you that this Hannah, the one that wanted, that for her growth and leadership was vertical, 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 doesn't exist anymore. Why? Because I realized that first, leadership takes time and we can build our own style. But being in corporates, and again, I don't want to criticize corporate, but sometimes you reach a point where the leader you want to be is not necessarily fitting the system or the leader that is expected to be. And that's what I realized, that sometimes being an authentic leader, you need also to be in an organization or in an environment that welcome people to bring their whole self to work and not just bring in one of their sides just to fit in. And that's a bit, again, I don't think I'm criticizing corporate or something. I'm just saying that in big systems and corporations, at some point we lose ourselves. Not completely, but we keep our part that, at least for me, I keep the part that is performing, that is fitting. But somehow, even if nobody is asking us, we start to shut down the other parts. I'm too creative. Maybe I'm too rebellious. Maybe I'm a too risk taker. Okay, let's play the game. Let's play the corporate game. And for me, being in the corporate game, because now I'm not at the corporate anymore, so I can talk about it. But for me, is the corporate games helped me a lot to become a better leader. Business-wise, people-wise, making tough calls, also making some trade-offs sometimes, decision-making. On the other side, there is one thing that we learn, for me at least, as a corporate leader, we become sharks, whether we like it or not. And it's a version of ourselves that we might like in a certain situation, but for me, I ask myself, do I want to spend my entire life playing the corporate game, or do I want to bring also more heart and more help? This side that was in me, but in that corporate game, this side couldn't breathe enough. And this came multiple years after that. I was enjoying, but at some point you have your calling. I mean, I turned also 40. It's maybe the midlife crisis where you realize, okay, I need something else. I need something more. I need something more meaningful. And this is the moment where I see that the leadership can continue to grow, not vertically in the same environment, but by exploring our other expertise. Not necessarily, for instance, for me, not just the pharma environment, but leadership and communication, it transcends industries. And this is where we realize that sometimes we can grow not only vertically, but horizontally in other horizons, in new unexpected areas. And this for me gave me this feeling of being a new beginner again, almost. You bring your expertise, but you have the thrill of going to a place where people around you didn't have the courage yet to get there. And for me, it's also part of leadership.
I truly agree. And I can look at your story and feel like I wish that I had become a little bit more of a shark sometimes. I went the other direction, that I became a leadership instructor in corporate on the side of my own leadership role. So I had a privilege to help people with an introduction, and we also had internal leadership training in that company. And I am so happy to have been a part of that, because that made me come into coaching quite early in my career. And I found from the start how fun it can be to, when you start those leadership training, when you have a new team that you have in front of you. At that time, we were live. We did not do it online. We were in a classroom. And when you have 10 or 15 people sitting in front of you, like you are in school, And everyone comes with different type of backgrounds. They have a different amount of experience, different ages on them. And the shift they did from week to week, because we had a 5-week program, but it was a couple of months between them all. So I think the training was for 8 months or something. And each time we were living on the headquarter together for a week. And to see people how they grew into the role of leadership, to be as a both from the model that we had, the structure we had in the company, but just to see the first conversation we had with someone, when you talk about what is it that doesn't work in your store? It is the staff. That person is bad. This one is not good salesman. This is a problem. This is a problem. And when you talk with them week 3 or 4, when you start to realize that when I went home after last week and started to talk to them, I think I was the problem. Yeah, many times it is the leader that is the problem. That what have they done before? If you just make an inventory of the knowledge that you actually have around you, because if you are 25, you're a first-time leader, and you work in a team where people have been working in that store for 15 or 20 years, you can't tell me that you don't have any experience around you, because they can't have been there for 20 years not knowing anything, because then the company would probably have get rid of them a while back. And I can see that if I had become more of a shark, I could have taken more space, that my voice could have been listened to more, and not just being a person in the background lifting everyone else up. And I also think that's something that held me back when I wanted to continue to climb the ladder up. I started to walk in the sideline, and I didn't see that as a bad thing, because I saw the impact that I did in so many other organizations just by helping so many leaders in that company. So I still was a big part of good results, but I also saw me working a lot, and everyone else got the bonus for the results that I brought to the table. And if I had spoken up more, I might have gotten a bigger salary, but I was just standing there feeling like I learned something. This is good for me. I have a lot of to put in my backpack and see with knowledge and all of it. But in the end, you're standing there with a CV where you have done so much, but you haven't had a title for it. So it's hard when you then search for a new job to say that I have this experience, because you need someone to actually write down exactly what you have done to make it easier for you to sell that to someone else.
I can totally relate to that. And for me, Angelica, you had also a fantastic journey, because recognizing that growth is not just vertical is fantastic. Because people that grow vertical exactly in the same area, they are specialists. And I believe today we need more T-shaped leaders. You know, people that have some general knowledge. Maybe you have your area of expertise, but you can spread your wings here and there. Because now the world is changing so fast. If we are focused in one area and tomorrow is not going to be relevant anymore because of AI, then we are left behind. So I think I love the concept that you did, that you went in other directions. And for me, to be honest, Shark, it has its pros, but it has also its cons, because at some point you don't recognize yourself anymore when you are this. There is one word you mentioned that I really loved, and you mentioned about speaking up. And for me, today, when I look at the work I am doing with leaders, emerging leaders or leaders about confident speaking, it's exactly that. It's not just about speaking. We learned speaking when we were kids and we are talking all the time, but it's about speaking up. So it's about, for me, the difference that I make is that speaking is sharing data, sharing information. When you start speaking up, you share your truth, you share your point, your opinion. And this is the moment where you really start to share your voice, your unique voice. And this is something that I see quite often in organizations, whether in corporate or also founders, that they are communicating and they can be strong communicators from a technicality perspective, but they still hold back about what they stand for.
And that's when you are in a meeting or when you are networking. Some people only look at the person that are the center of attention because that person is talking more. Everyone is looking at them because they like to stand there. And some people see they as the most important person. But sometimes you can have those quiet voices in the back that if you actually start to talk to them in a one-on-one conversation or when you sit down in a breakout room or something and you hear that that person sit on so much more information, so much more knowledge, and you only wish that they were the one who stand there in the middle of the room taking everyone's time because they had so much more to bring to the table. So it isn't always easy to make yourself heard, and some people don't feel like they need it, but a lot of people have that much knowledge that I wish that they had their voice out there because it could help so many others. Uh, you don't need to be like everyone else. You don't need to be the one that talked with the highest voice. You just need to have something behind what you're saying. And that's something I think it is so important to actually know what you're talking about and also be able to tell someone when they ask a question, no, don't have the answer on that, but I will look that up because that's also something that show growth. Because when I started as a leader, when I wanted to be the one who knew everything, I still hold it true to myself that I didn't lie to someone by pretending that I knew something that I didn't. And I think that is something that I see as a strength. And I also think that's come from my background with horses because I have worked, I mean, in summer camps with kids with horses since I was very, very young. I started already when I was 10 because I knew the family who had that summer camp. So I lived there together with the other kids just because some people that are sleeping away from home for the first time can think that it is very harsh and they want to call mom, and then they always had someone that knew the people who had the summer camp, and that was me. And I knew how to speak for others. I knew how to help others feel seen. My hard thing for me was to talk for myself instead, because I think already here I started to help everyone else, but I didn't need any help myself. And that's something that I have worked so much with myself on that I as I don't see asking for help as a weakness anymore. I see it as a strength because if I feel good by helping others, why couldn't I give that for someone else to make someone else feel good because they can help me? It is so important to be true to who you are, but also be open for growth. Because that's something that when I look back at my history or the career that I have had, I feel bored when I can't learn anymore. When I feel that I am stuck, I don't have that chaos around me that I need to fix because I've been in so many organizations that wasn't feeling well when I came there. That became my strength because I had a lot of knowledge and had the result in my backpack and I knew I had the tools. So I came into an organization and I looked at what is it that we need to do and fix this. And when I had fixed that, I could give that organization to a new leader and said that now you have a good foundation to start your work on. And I became a mentor for that person. And then I moved on to my next mission. And I thought that was very fun. But when I realized there isn't any next step for me, that's when I start to wonder, what am I supposed to do now? What type of course can I read outside work so that I still feel like I'm using my brain? I think that's also why I started my own business. That's something that I wanted to do since a young age. I have always wanted to be self-employed. I have always wanted to be able to work from wherever I want and to actually help people, but I want to help people that want to help themselves. Because when you work in corporate, it is easy that someone send you a person who said, this person needs fixing, Yeah, but that person doesn't want to be fixed because that person think they are amazing like they are. And yes, as a person, you might be amazing, but you have something to learn in leadership to be able to actually move the results upwards in the organization. And it is so hard when you work with someone when everything becomes your responsibility. Because if it doesn't work for them, it's because you did a bad job. But that's what I like with coaching, because it ain't me. It's not my responsibility to make the change. It is you as a person that wants to be in a coaching relationship that needs that help to actually take action on the things that you say that you want to take actions on. But it's still you that bring the work to the table.
I totally relate here. The first thing is that we have another thing in common is that for me as well, like when the challenge was resolved, I am the kind of person that get bored quite quickly. When, let's say, I think my maximum in each role was 2 to 3 years, and then I either need to go to the next step horizontally or vertically in the same company or go to another one. And for me, it's also this need or this hunger for something that can stretch me. And the other point that you mentioned about coaching, whether it's mentoring, coaching within the corporate or as your client, is, of course, it's not our responsibility anymore, and it's our client that need to grow or shift or achieve some growth by themselves. But what I also realized, I don't know for you whether clients or people being mentees before in the corporate or even at Toastmasters for public speaking, is that most of the time it takes time for people to understand that it's their own responsibility. Because when they come to a coach, they expect that the coach will fix them. So it takes time to realize, no, I am the CEO of my life. I am the one that needs to want it and needs to be committed, because if there is not this, then there will not be progress. And then I am the one who is committed to do the work, take action. So even if you get a certain self-realization, but you need to act on it. For me, this is also a shift between how people look at coaching when they are not in the coaching area. Coaching, mentoring, training, all the same. And once you are in it, then you realize, no, this is coaching. This is pure coaching. This is mentoring. This is consulting. This is blended. And this is, for me, is also fascinating to see between the theory and also the reality, and how people react as well.
How did you come into coaching? Have you been coached? Have you been a coaching client yourself?
Yes. Yeah. So for me, I have been, so let's say my first expertise in this gray area was more mentoring. So I was lucky, but also I was proactively seeking for a mentor already in the pharma industry, and I have been in wonderful mentorship programs. So I started already being exposed as a mentee to mentors who were more senior than me. And then at some point I started giving back. So I started also being officially mentor for people. And that's why for me, mentoring can really change your life. On both sides, it changed your life twice. Change your life the first time when a mentor believes in you and see a potential that you haven't seen in yourself yet, and then you can grow. And on the moment where you start mentoring other people, so you help them grow, but you grow also with them. So my first experience was not with the pure coaching, was more with the mentoring area. But then within the mentoring area, once I started, because the last 15 years I've been communicating quite often in my career, as an internal keynote speaker, event host, and moderator. And I started step by step helping my colleagues, helping other people for their presentations. And there was already this component of coaching, but also a lot the training and mentoring. And for me, the component where it's pure coaching is when it comes to the fear of public speaking. Because you cannot fix the fear of other people. People need to understand through strong questions and powerful questions what's their fear, what's the underlying fear, and how they can manage it, because it doesn't go away. So it was still a gray zone, but this is how my real coaching and not mentoring started. What I did as well is that right now I'm about to finalize also a proper coaching certification with ICF, where I'm really focused only on a pure coaching. But as I take usually rebellious decisions, I started the coaching already a few years back. Now it's just the certification. But I have to confess, really, because today in my work as a CEO and founder of Find Your Voice, I have the keynote speaker part, I have the coach part, and I have what's in between, workshop facilitator, trainers. So for me, coaching was never my first priority. My first priority or my first identity is keynote speaker, because I have some topics that I believe in that can fit companies or conferences and can help people change and inspire them. And I would say as a second priority, it's the training and the coaching. And I would like to keep it like this, because I know that there are a lot of communication experts that are the other way around. They are more communication coach, and then they are keynote speaker. So for me, I am more the keynote speaker who coaches than the coach who communicates.
That is interesting, because I still think that brings in so much to your coaching, and also when you are mentoring, because you have the experience and your heart is in the keynote speaking, as in speaking, and through that you can help others. And I like what you say, that you can't make someone else being less afraid. Also, through your work, they become less afraid because they are working with and getting questions that they can work on. And I think that is so interesting, because I know when people come to people and say that, oh, you are so lucky that you are good at public speaking. And it is like kicking someone on the leg or something, because they don't understand the hours, the training, all the standing in front of the mirror, holding your speech. Because I think absolutely there are natural speakers, but they are natural speakers because they have had a surrounding when they grew up that always encouraged them to speak in front of other people. And I think that if you grow up and get to hear all the time that you were such a shy kid, you are so shy, you were always so good at being quiet in big audiences, and all of it. So we can help the kids around us or young people around us to take more space by not shutting them down every time they come to say something. And I know that I can be very, very nervous when I'm supposed to speak in front of people. But when I know what it is that I am supposed to talk about, and if it is something that is close to my heart, I love to be on stage. I have been that a lot when I was working in corporate, because when I talk about subjects that I know that I'm good at, I have no problem with standing and talk about it. And I think that's also something that is important, that when you create a presentation or something, that is when you try to either sound like someone else because you have heard someone said, this is good, I want to look and be like this person. And that's when it becomes harder for you, because then you come up on stage and try to become someone else. And that's also thing. There is acting. Some people are good at that because they like to play a role. But how do you look at that? It's in the speaking area. Do you want people to be themselves, or do you go in a different role when you are on stage?
Yeah. So I would say both. First of all, that you mentioned about, I would even say the family and the school system sometimes could be like the American school system, where kids have already debate and they start speaking, versus other schools where you just write. So this could also help to have the initial potential. I believe that we all have a potential to be good speakers. Maybe not everyone have the potential to be a great speakers, but starting with the potential, it's already good. But the thing is that potential alone without work doesn't lead you anywhere. So if you have a speaking potential, or you are afraid from stage, there is the technical part of it. So you have the fear that you can manage through the self-talk and through some exercises, but also you have the public speaking techniques that helps you, even if you know your topic, if you are the expert, the techniques can bring your message from this impact to this impact. And that's why, for me, the techniques start first of all from maybe I will give away some tips. The technique starts first of all from before even starting to prepare your presentation. A keynote speaker is not about, or a speaker is not about themselves, it's about their audience. So if you know who is your audience, how do you want to make them feel? And what's your lasting message you want them to walk with? If those three answers to those three questions are very clear before even starting to do a PowerPoint, or do you need a PowerPoint or a flip chart, then you can start building presentation from the right foundation. What I see quite often, and also with my clients in big organizations, is that most of the time presentations is prepared by communication department, and there are slides and storylines, and then the rehearsal starts. But once the rehearsal starts on stage, the presentation has already been built based on data and facts, but not on the audience, not on how to translate this message to that audience. Let's take an example of a head of department or a CAO. If you have the same message and you present it to your leadership team or to all employees or externally in a conference, it's not the same. And that's why it's important in the preparation, not just to focus on what do I want to say, but what do my audience needs? And what is the impact I want to leave to my audience? So that's something that can help. And that's something that there are some techniques that start already, like you put yourself in a rehearsal mode while you are still preparing your presentation. So once the real rehearsal comes, it's slightly easier, because you built your storyline based on how you will deliver it. So you have the what and the how.
Yeah, and that's just amazing to hear, because I think it is the same when you have a small meeting as a leader too.
Yes.
Because you need to know what is it that I want. Also, you need to have a subject, so a purpose. Why do we have this meeting? And what results do I want to have, or what type of action are we supposed to create after this meeting? Because how many people haven't been in a meeting where you wonder after 2 hours, why were I here? Why were I invited? Because, like you said, if you have a presentation, think just in finance, and if you talk to everyone just in finance, it might be important to just talk numbers. But if you are talking with the HR or something, they don't want to see the financial reports in the same way. You need to have a different angle. And I think it is important to know the topics that you're talking about, but it is so important to who you are speaking and what do you want them to take with them after. You have seen people that have had an idea when they go out on stage. But if you just have those 3 points with you, you can talk about whatever you want. If you want to go up there because I am here to motivate someone, and if they are motivated when you leave, you have succeeded. It doesn't matter what you have been talking about. But if you have that clear to yourself, what is the purpose by being here? And I am so sick at the Leadership Act when you have a meeting to talk about what meeting we were supposed to have next time, where we're supposed to talk about what action we're supposed to take the next month. Also, have a clear agenda, have a clear purpose, and then when you're done, summarize what we've been talking about. What is it that we have decided about? Because we can't every time just lose that and take time from others, because I think a lot of people have a lot to do all the time. It isn't often you talk with a leader that says that I have so much time over, I don't know what to do, I don't have anything to do. A lot of people have that. They always have that pressure that they don't have enough time. So why do we steal that into meetings or talks or something that don't lead anywhere?
I totally agree with you. And you know that last week we published with my co-host and I our latest episode, and it was about corporate calls. And We spoke about it in a funny way, but we were exactly explaining that sometimes we lose our time in some meetings that don't have a goal, that the participants don't know what they expected from them. Are they nice to have, or they are must have? And this is sometimes you bring 20 people where you only need two. So you make other people losing their time. But you know what, I liked what you mentioned. You took the example of finance, and I would really like to jump in here. So for me, finance and science, I even wrote an article about how to lead and speak in finance and science, because I see a common point between both. As I told you, I started in science, my head is in business. Both areas are data driven. They are heavy in insight and in inputs. Whether you are, let's say, a doctor presenting in a conference, or you are a scientist in a company, or if you are a CFO or in finance. And the challenge is that the more insight you have, the less impact you will have on your audience. So those two roles for me, they are the ones that need the more, especially as leaders, that they need the more communication, public speaking, coaching. First, to master data storytelling, and to really link topics that could be dry to emotional hooks, because we are all human beings. Even in organization, if you have an audience, you need to win your audience, not just their head and their mind, but you need to win their heart. And if you cannot translate, for example, profitability, what does it mean, from sustainability of a company, that people will keep their job and they keep their balance, then you didn't send your message. If you have a data from a clinical research saying, for example, 20% less side effects, if you cannot translate it into the quality of life of patients and the life they can have with their loved ones, then you didn't hit the point. And for me, that's why actually most of my clients, whether they come from finance, because I'm in Frankfurt, so I have a lot of bankers out there, and also science and pharma, you could be the expert in data. It doesn't mean you are the greater communicator, because sometimes the more you know, the more difficult it is to impact people. And most of the time on stage, also as a keynote speaker, less is more. Less data, less insight, but the meaningful ones. Take one data measure, maybe one number, or at least maximum two numbers, and tell a story about them and make your point about them. And that's where I see that maybe now I'm speaking with my two hats, as a keynote speaker, but also as a coach, and I also facilitate some workshops on data storytelling. How can you make those roles that most of the time are dry and people maybe listen, and if they are not science or finance, that they could sleep, how they can master communication as a leader for non-science and non-finance colleagues or audience.
I think that is so fascinating to hear, because the thing that I see in front of me is all the people that get promoted because they are the best salesmen. So now you're supposed to be a leader in this organization. And it comes to the same point. You can be a great salesman. That doesn't mean that you will be a great leader, because it's two different roles. Because how many times haven't you taken the best salesman and put that in the role as a leader, and they lose the things that they were good at because you don't sell anymore, because now you're supposed to make other people sell. I don't say that a good salesman can't be a good leader, absolutely not. But you need to ask someone when you promote them, what would they like to bring to the table? Do they want to be a leader? And it's the same thing. Do you want to be the one who stand in front of people and talk about this subject? Or is it better that we bring in someone else that may get the message out in a way that our whole organization actually goes away from this conference and actually do what we have been talking about? So it is so important to have the right person on the right role, but also give the people the foundation to actually do a good job.
Totally. And you just mentioned also the fact, companies that need an external speaker. And I'm always asking myself why companies do need motivational speaker, when they have their conferences. And, at some point you see quite often, I've experienced myself as an audience, motivational speakers that climbed the Everest, that went to the extreme sport, people that did extraordinary thing so they can motivate their team. And I think it's something nice because they can draw analogies between their day-to-day that could be sometimes boring, and they link it to something extreme so they can build again passion. And again, I have nothing against that. It's amazing. But for me, when I see on a day-to-day life keynote speakers, every speaker can be a motivational speaker. But the motivation lasts 1 hour, 2 hours, 1 day, 2 days, 1 week after that event. Nowadays, as a keynote speaker, we cannot just motivate people. You need to transform them. And transformation doesn't come just with personal stories. Of course, it could be amazing if you can inspire people, but then what do they take away with them that they could apply and act on? And that's for me, the transformation is coming back to how much the what is important. So the how and how you deliver and inspiring is good. But maybe companies should also invite motivational speakers that could also a bit understand their reality without necessarily being in the inside and without necessarily being completely in the extreme. Because then you have empathy, then you have real life. It's maybe less sexy than when you are completely in the edge, but there is results afterwards. And that's the type of keynote speaking that I bring. I love inspiring people and motivating them, but I love when they take something and they learn and they grow and they act. They take action after any keynote.
And that's something that I think is so now I use the word. I think that it is inspiring to hear, but inspiring and motivating, that's not the thing that moves us forward. It is the discipline that actually make us do the change. So if you give them tools to act on, if you have that speech and ask people to, when you go home, do this. And when they have done that, you have the next step. And that's what I think, that it is the discipline that creates more motivation. So inspiration and all honor, but you need to get something. And that's when you said the transformation is the most important part. And I also think it's great that you have this coaching on your resume, that you can help people in the organization to be the motivated speaker themselves, to not only be those who come from Mount Everest or something, that talk about something that not every person would do that. So you can be extremely inspired of this person that climb Mount Everest or Kilimanjaro or whichever mountain, even if you can't walk or if you did that when you were blind. But I'm not blind, and I will not climb Mount Everest because that's not what I want to do. But still, it is motivating to hear about people's journey. But I also want something that I can bring to my heart and see that this is something that made me do a change. So the transformation, I think that's the most important part.
And there is a place for both, because there are, depending on the type of conferences. I mean, if there is a conference where a company is going really through a difficult time, where they lost completely their motivation, or there was a merge or something, a motivational speaker can still bring the spark. So again, I'm not criticizing purely motivational speaker, because they can bring the spark. But again, depending on your audience and depending on the type of event, you might want speakers that not focus just on the motivation inspiring of the moment, because you still need it on the moment, but on the impact afterwards. So I wouldn't say that I am in this category and the other category is not good, but depending on the audience and on the need. And if your audience are leaders, not the full organization, but are leaders, then you need to bring something tangible, valuable, because they don't have time. So they need to use that time efficiently and take something home. And that's a bit the keynote speaking area. If you are a motivational speaker in the pharma industry, knowing that you were in the pharma industry, of course, your narrative is not I climbed the Everest, but your narrative is that I know your industry from the inside, but I also know it from the outside. And that's a different type of a keynote.
Yeah, and I think the keynotes that actually give the most are the conversations that are when it's done. When people sit in the audience and when they go out for a break or something, what are they talking about? If they go out and talk about what to eat for dinner that day, then they didn't bring it with them, because you need to get something in that speech or in that hour or 10 minutes or whatever amount of time you've been sitting there, but you want them to take a conversation with them when they leave, because that's when you know that you have reached them in some way. But because they also bring that up when they sit at the dinner table at home, or when they come back to their own organization, or when they talk with a friend, that's when you feel that transformation and they actually take action about what they've been listening to.
Totally, totally. And this is, the moment where I also realized that when you are a keynote speaker and a coach, then let's say you are preaching and also there is some transformation, but it doesn't always land, but there is some transformation happening. But then there is always this impact that comes after the spotlight, where people either reach out to you and tell you, coach me, or reach out to you and tell you, we would like to train our smaller team on more, go deeper in communication, can you join? So for me, keynote speaking, even if it's my first priority, because I also love it, but it's usually unlocks other opportunities and exchanges afterwards as a follow-up. So you have, it's almost like the pre-sales, the sales, and the post-sales, because then you are speaking about something, but you could easily train the people that were listening or watching this keynote into the things you were preaching about. So it's almost like a full 360 approach.
And I think that's also the same thing in coaching. Also, when you sit in a session with someone and it is questions that comes up, and that's something that you as a coach can bring with you when you create content on LinkedIn or on Instagram, because the question that comes up in this conversation, it is most often a thought that someone else have also had. So you can help so many more by just seeing what you hear from this conversation, and I can bring that out and bring that to speech so that someone else feel I'm not alone, and that can also be the way for them to actually want to reach out to take help themselves. So with everything you do, you're supposed to have a thought about how can I help more people with the things that I do.
Yes. And that's what brings that the core value of a coach or speaker are the same. The personas are different or the skills might be sometimes different, but the core is helping and changing people. Whether you help them from a stage or you help them from holding presence for them and let them grow and let them figure out by themselves, the core value, which I find it super fulfilling, is helping other people be in the best version of themselves.
Yeah, and that feels like a beautiful way to end this podcast. I love the conversation that we've been through, but I would like to ask you a couple of questions. Same question that I ask all my guests. And the first one is, what inspired you to start your journey in your field, and what keeps you motivated today?
For me, it's a question I could answer in a multiple ways, because starting or restarting, I had a start, then I had a restart. But for me, I will answer the question in a way, what made me reinvent myself and restart multiple times, whether restarting through living and leading across different countries, or even from the pharma world to now the leadership, keynote speaking and coaching. So for me, what inspired me is this curiosity and almost hunger for what's new. This is part of who I am, and it made me start in this journey, then start in another journey. Another point is that I think with the years, and maybe I'm in the middle of my midlife crisis, I'm getting to know better myself and I'm working a bit deeper into being aligned to my purpose. And discovering this purpose of finding my voice, that's why I called my company like this, is something that inspired me to almost start from scratch after more than 20 years in the pharma, a new era. It's being aligned with myself and spending time fully taking this call, the calling that I got to help other people.
What's a common challenge that you see people facing, and what's one practical way to overcome it?
The common challenge I see here, and I will speak maybe now from a speaker coach perspective, is that leaders or emerging leaders, most of them, they hold themselves back. It's coming back to this speaking and speaking up. That's the common challenge. And here, I don't mind being introvert or extrovert, because you could have introvert people that could be great leaders and great communicators. So it's not about talking. But the challenge is that how you can move from just speaking to being brave enough and having the right technique and competencies to speak up, because speaking up is finding your voice.
Which personal values or principle guide your work and decision making today?
Yeah, so I love decision making. Sometimes I took fast decisions, whether they worked or not. But for me, it's always a balance. I believe a lot on data, and even across my career. So I like taking data-driven or insight decisions, even if I don't have all the data, but enough data. But I'm a very gut feeling person. So I trust my instinct. Throughout my life, it happened sometimes that it didn't feel right and I still did it, and then it didn't work out. So I'd rather trust my instinct and have some insight and take that decision, because if I am wrong or if it doesn't work out, I have no regret, than not listening to this inner voice and not being aligned with my insight. So that's my key principles when it comes to decision making.
That's so interesting to hear, and I have so much thoughts about it, and I think that's something I would like to do a different podcast just about my own journey, about when you feel strongly in one way, but you have heard from someone else that you should do this or you should do that, and you decide to listen to them, and when you look back and felt like, why didn't I just listen to myself? Why did I go into this rabbit hole and spend so much time and energy in something that wasn't true to myself? So it is beautiful to hear that you have come to that insight to actually listen to yourself, and that you take your decisions from that. Could you share a moment or experience that shifted your perspective or your approach, either in your career or in your life?
And is when I turned 40. Clearly. For me, turning 40 was difficult a bit to accept. I don't know how old you are, and I will not dare asking you, but I am fine with sharing my age. But when I turned 40, it was not just putting a new number, but it almost hit me on the face. I started questioning a lot of things in my life. I started questioning my work in the pharma. Am I doing it for the money or for my own fulfillment? I started questioning the woman I am. It's a new era. And this moment shifted so much in me that I realized that what was working till that moment was not working anymore. And it was hard, but it helped me. I almost fell to rise again. It helped me discover a deeper purpose, a new purpose, or my true calling, which is finding my inner voice, and also helping other people finding their voice. I had also a few health issues when I also turned 40, and I also realized that I need to listen to my body more and not just go into this performance and leadership and listening to my voice. So that's a clear turning point in my life. Maybe every decade there is a turning point, but it was really a calling for me.
I have 3 more years before I turn 40, but I wonder if I also will have a big life-changing moment or something then. I remember when I was 23. I think I had my first crisis when I was 23. I had a conversation with a friend where I felt like I haven't accomplished anything. and I need to do something because I need to be what I'm supposed to be when I'm 25, and it is only 2 more years to then. But then when I look back, I became a mom when I was 20. I had my first leadership role when I was 20, and that was
Fantastic.
a career that I continue to do. So it's hard to say that when you're 23 that I haven't accomplished anything. But yeah, I had done a lot if you just compared yourself with the people that didn't have a job yet or still was out partying and were only doing things like that. And I think that I stopped looking at my age when I became 25, and me and the same friend had a conversation about we are 25 and we have 40 more years to work. So how can we say that we are not good enough yet? Because we have still 40 more years that we are supposed to find what we want to do. How are we supposed to know when we have left school when we're 19 and we have then worked for a couple of years and know that this is what I'm supposed to do the rest of my life? But it is easy to feel like someone else have come further, or that you feel like if I haven't the answers yet, I have lost myself. So yeah, it is easy to get stuck in age or feeling like you're supposed to fit a role or a model that someone else have made for you.
And you know that because life goes by, now I came back to when I was 22, 23, and finally life goes by quicker than what we think. I also realized that the role model I had 20 years back is not the role model I have now. And I thought, also like you, I thought that I need to find the answers. I can tell you right now in my life, I am more looking to find the right questions than the answers. And I am fine with having some questions where I don't have the answer yet. But I am fine with that, finally.
Have you read the book The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? They are around searching for the answer to the question of life. And they have been building a computer for millions of years to answer this question. And when they finally get the answer is 42. And then everyone's seen stand there like question marks, because how could that be the answer? And that's when they start to ask, what was the question? And no one knows what is the question about life. It is just so easy to start to run for answers, but you don't know what is it that you actually ask about. What is it that you want to know? And yeah, it's interesting to hear you then say that you are searching for the right questions, not the answers anymore.
You know what I just thought about when you described the book? I thought about AI, because now AI, the input is all about how your prompts look like and how
Yeah,
clear
yeah,
your question is. So
yeah,
clearly we are living in the
yeah,
question quality era
yeah,
more than the
yeah.
knowledge era. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think that is so interesting if you talk about being a high performers, being a high performer, and you always try to do a little bit more than anyone asks you for. That's AI. Because if you have a conversation with ChatGPT and you ask a question and you get answers for 25 different things that you haven't been even talking about yet, it is hard to have a conversation with ChatGPT if you want to be less of a high performer, so that you start to achieve just what you're supposed to instead of a little bit more all the time, because you will never achieve more than what AI do for you. So it's hard. You're not supposed to compare with that. You're
I
not
agree.
supposed to be a computer. We are supposed to continue to be human. And I think that's also something that is so important when you talk about coaching, because there is so much you can learn from internet. There's so much you can ask. So the question for us that are into coaching is, what can I bring to the table? What type of question will I ask you? Because when you coach yourself through ChatGPT or something like that, it is so easy when you get a hard question to say, I take care of that later. And then you start to work with the next instead. But when you have a conversation with a human, you will not let that go. Because if you don't want to ask this question, I will ask it again. Maybe in a different way, because when you don't want to ask the answer, it's probably there we need to dig deeper to actually find what it is that is the why have we created this pattern, and why can't we make that change? We need to go deeper into that.
That's a fantastic insight. And you put me almost back on when I was speaking about keynote speaker, but I think it's valid also for the coach, is that AI today bring us almost all what we need in terms of what. But I think as speakers and coach, we are still dominating the how. Whether the voice, the silence in between, the empathy, this is something that is not provided by AI yet. Let's see by the future. But this is where I draw the line, because for me, I don't think I'm the AI expert, but I like using AI, and it could help whether in generating ideas or crafting a bit of content and helping. But the how, whether you are coaching or you are speaking, is still yours. You own it. And this is, I think, where you could excel while collaborating with AI, because it's there, whether for coaching or for speaking, but still bring in your own how.
And that's, I will take that a little bit further, because I also think it is so important to ask yourself why. Why do I want to do this? Why is this a goal that I have? And that's also something that I have as a big thing in my coaching, that when we talk about your vision, I want to know why that is your vision. How would that make you feel when you have reached it? Because we need to find something that it is so strong that even if it feels like everything is working against you, you're supposed to take that small step in the direction against the goal that you have. And I think if you take New Year's resolution to go to the gym as an example, that I have decided I'm supposed to be there 5 times a week because I will be so fit. And then you get a cold and you are not at the gym for 2 weeks. And then you don't come back again. But if your goal to, I'm supposed to go to the gym because I want to be able and be healthy enough to play with my grandkids, then it doesn't matter if you're sick for 2 weeks, because after those 2 weeks, you still want to be healthy enough to play with your grandkids. So I go back to the gym again. So, yes, how? And then also, why do I want to do it?
It's a beautiful example. I think we will talk for 2 hours. It's a lovely conversation. It's a beautiful example that you mentioned, because you reminded me of my first keynote of the year. It was a virtual keynote in a forum, and it was about New Year's resolutions. And my keynote was where vision drives action. And there I took the example of the gym, like why do you want to be more attractive, or do you want to have more quality time with your loved ones? So everyone has a different why. But from there, my 3 main messages to the audience was, first of all, find your why, because then you have the purpose and you have the inner motivation. My second message was, remember your why, because life gets tough and you might lose yourself in the process. And remembering why you are doing things at the first place will put you back on track and will give you a sense of direction. And exactly the example of the gym is that my third message was, stay consistent. So you could have this purpose and why, but it's a discipline, as you mentioned earlier. Staying consistent, once you find your why and you remember your why, you stay consistent. So then you can reach not only success, but happiness when you are consistent and doing the little steps of improvement. So I was smiling when you were giving this example. Yeah, it's a lovely conversation. I'm realizing we have so much in common, and it's really
Yeah, yeah.
growing.
Yeah, it's I really like this conversation because I recognize so much of myself in you, even if we have a different background. But just this is when you see that you talk to someone that have the same type of values as
Yes,
you have.
totally.
And I think it is a beautiful conversation, and I have so much to learn from you. Yeah. My
And me
last
from you.
question was, what advice would you give to someone who wants to grow, evolve, and make a meaningful change in their life and career? It feels like a little bit that you answer that by the first keynote speech of the year, but do you have something more that you want to add for that?
I mean, I will probably summarize or come back to one point, because you said people that want to grow. And if you want to grow in any aspects of your life, don't just speak up. And that would be my final words for today.
Wonderful. And I am so grateful for having this conversation with you, and I look forward to continue to follow your work. And I would like to tell the audience that remember that aligned leadership, it begins with you.